As a technology leader in a school, it's very important to keep in mind the backgrounds and cultures of the students in our classes. There are an abundance of stereotypes about different cultures and ethnicities and genders and technology that we need to break through and challenge in order to really figure out how to completely work technology into the classroom. To start, I read an article about men and women in virtual schools. It was a study in Germany about self-evaluation in men and women. They never told the students that they were going to be focused on gender. They only asked them different ways that they evaluated themselves in the technology of the virtual school. The article actually mentioned that we don't consider virtual school technology because we take it for granted, and that actually helped the women gain a little bit more confidence in themselves. So like Nordhaus said earlier, and even some people still today, consider men to be superior leaders to women. We don't see that as much today, but nonetheless it is still a stereotype that people hold. In technology, it's even a further stereotype. Most people consider men more technologically savvy than women are. That is not always the case, and this study went out to find out if that was true or not. In the end, the men did score a little higher on their confidence with the technology, but it was minimal. They were both very close to the average. So as a leader in this field, I find it important to help those women break through. I teach at a school, it's a very small school, about 200 kids, actually less than that, and we have a one-to-one iPad, and we have a tech team with kids on it. There are 5 males on the team, but no females. And that's not because we didn't seek out females. In fact, when I picked them, I looked for girls, like how can we get a girl in this? And so I asked around, and none of the girls were interested in joining the tech team because they didn't feel they were knowledgeable enough to help. So we need to show those girls that they are knowledgeable enough to help. This is a cultural issue. Women do know technology. Our last technology director at my school was a woman. I replaced her this year after she resigned. It's very possible for a woman to know technology. They just don't feel confident in themselves because many don't feel that it is a woman's place to use technology, which is ridiculous. Anybody can use technology, and anybody should be able to know how to use it. So as a leader, it is my job to help those girls figure out exactly how they can break through the technological barriers and get into the technology. My second article interested me especially because it was all about rural schools and technology, which is something that I have a lot of experience with both. The article was Instructional Technology for Rural Schools, Access and Acquisition. It was focused on special education, but the actual article did not completely, it talked about everything in the schools. It goes into technologies that schools need, technologies that they don't have. They need things like projectors, they need computers, they need TVs, some of them need cameras. I've never actually seen a school that required a camera, but the article mentioned that cameras are things that schools need. And then it talked about technologies that are emerging, such as iPads, iPods, and even game devices, and how we can obtain those as rural schools who are a little bit less rich than others. So they talked about grants and bulk funding. This article was specifically about challenging school leaders to get as much technology as they can. Like I said, I come from a rural school that has one-to-one iPads. We have a laptop we have 3 laptop cards, so this is not really a problem for me, but I see the problem and I see where it comes from. In Nordhaus chapter 13, he talks about all the different types of psychological studies, all the different personality types, and how we as teachers need to cater to that, or we as leaders need to cater to those. We also need to use our own personality types. In order to do that, I think technology really will help us because there are different activities that you can do for different personality types that don't actually stray too far from each other. You can give student A and student B two different assignments on technology that basically do the same thing, just cater to their personality levels. But these rural schools can't always afford that technology. So they have to figure out a way to do that. So as a school leader, I think rural schools that don't have the budgets that bigger schools have, or maybe even private schools, they need to look for grants, like be constantly on the lookout for grants, and also ask companies how they can make things cheaper. If you order from Apple, I know that you get school discounts in addition to bulk orders. With our iPads, if you buy a certain amount of apps in one purchase, they will knock down the price quite a bit. So we just have to look for those and ask. Don't be afraid to ask the company if we can get a little bit less money just based on how many we order. My final article was all about smartphones, and it did not focus 100% on education, but I saw a lot of educational value in it. The article was from the Library of Technology Reports. It was all about what kind of people have smartphones. It specifically started out and said Google smartphone user and what kind of pictures come up. And it said most of the time what we see are white people using phones. And the article then challenged, saying that white people are not the only people who use smartphones, which seems kind of obvious to me, but the article focused a little bit more on the stereotypes. The research that they conducted stated that only 80% of whites own cell phones, while 87% of blacks and English-speaking Latinos do. I thought that the interesting point that they made was that of those 87%, 18% of those blacks and 16% of Latinos use their smartphones as their only internet source, which is a small screen, generally a little bit slower, very hard to type. I can't honestly imagine researching a report with a cell phone in one hand, typing on the other, while you're trying to aggressively Google your research. So this is something that we need to consider as school leaders. The article presented a lot of challenges to me. We as teachers often give homework that requires the internet. The first day of school, we often ask how many of you do not have internet access, and that happens, and we try to accommodate them as best as we can. But some kids are going to say, yeah, I have internet, but that may mean they have internet on their phone. We have to consider that as leaders, because sometimes your assignment may be due the next day, but it's going to take them twice as long to do the assignment as it would a student who is using a computer. So we need to keep that in mind, because as I pointed out earlier, with the North House and the personalities from the psychoanalytical leadership, we need to try to cater to all those personalities. And using the internet is a way to do that, but we cannot assume that everyone has fast internet, that everyone has a computer. They may just be using their phone, but they may not tell you outright that, no, I don't have a computer, I'm just using my phone for the internet. So we have to keep that in mind. Extended due dates are a possibility. Anything where we're using the internet, maybe give them 2 to 3 days to work on it instead of overnight, maybe even longer, or a weekend. Additionally, the article talked about how using the internet is a hostile environment on a phone. I actually asked a few people today how they felt about using the phone as internet, and they said it wasn't really that challenging. And I don't consider it a hostile environment by any stretch of the imagination, really. But I do understand that it is slower, it is smaller, you have to zoom in and out, and so it is a challenge. So we as leaders do need to make sure that we keep this in mind when we assign anything that is using homework or using the internet overnight. So overall, we have to keep in mind the different cultures, different backgrounds when thinking about technology in school. Not everyone has a computer, not everyone has access to the internet, and not everyone is comfortable using the internet. So we have to keep that in mind when assigning. We have to teach what we can and do what we need to do in order to accommodate students of all backgrounds and all cultures and all ethnicities. Thank you.